All right. We have got Councilman Coleman A. Young II here today. Thanks for coming by. And we're just going to take care of a little business right here.
Get your paychecks up to 2 days faster with Early Pay. True story. Welcome to Huntington.
All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here. I thought it'd be interesting to talk to you about your impressions of the council and how things are going and your thoughts and some of the issues I'll be asking you about. Uh, First of all, what's your impression of being on the council? Was it what you expected, or has it been, easier or harder or what?
Well, first of all, Alan, always good to see you, man. You looking good, man.
Likewise,
Always good
likewise.
to see you. But the hardest working man in showbiz. One.
Mutual,
Secondly,
mutual.
let me just say, it's a true blessing and honor, and I'm thankful to the people of Detroit who voted for me to be on this position. It's a
Mhm.
lot of work. I have a whole new respect. I thought I kind of knew how this is supposed to go coming from the state, and so
Uh-huh.
because I've been up there for about 12 years. And
Right.
so when I came down here, I thought I had an idea, but I had no idea the amount of work, the amount of
Hmm.
discipline, the amount of energy. I just have
Right.
a whole new respect for all my peers, to the city
Uh,
council, to the mayor, and to the hardworking people in City Hall as a whole. So
uh,
I'm just blessed to be a part of it. It's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love.
okay. And so in terms of the council members, all are they all? Some are new. Some
Yeah.
have been there for a little while. Everyone gets along, or how is it? How does that all work out these days?
Well, listen, I'm sure that our relationship on council is like your relationship with Deadline Detroit. We're professionals. You know what I'm saying? We here to get the job done. You
Right.
might have
Right.
some disagreements, you might have some
Mhm.
issues, but at the end of the day, we're here to get the job done and serve the citizens.
Uh-huh.
And we're here above anything else to add value to their lives. And that's what
Right.
comes first. And so I'm just very humbled and appreciative of the leadership of Mary Sheffield for us to be able to move the city forward and improve the lives of the citizens who elected us.
There's always a question, how independent is the council of Mayor Duggan, or how much power does he really wield over the council? How would you what's your read on that?
Well, we're a co-equal branch of government. I mean, obviously, we're a strong mayor form of government, but we're a
Uh-huh.
co-equal branch of government. So we kind of
Mhm.
really work in tandem. We're an approval body. We
Uh-huh.
have the opportunity to be able to initiate, ordinance and things of that nature. But a lot of the appointments, a lot of the executive power rests with the mayor. And I
Right.
think that's according to the charter, and that's how it should be. And so it really is a balance of working together. That's why they call politics the art of compromise. You have to be able to you have to be able to cut deals without sacrificing your ideals, I would say.
Right.
But
Right. For
it's
sure.
really a balance of just working together and trying to move the city forward for the greater good.
Well, let me ask you some questions. Some of the issues before. I mean, I'll ask you about crime and also about the marijuana thing. It seems like people complain and say all the revenue is going out. Walled Lake and Ferndale, Hazel Park. Uh, what's the holdup? Why is Detroit so? I mean, it's not. This has been quite a while now.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I think I introduced the most pro marijuana legislation out of
Uh-huh.
anybody in the state. And if you
Uh-huh.
would have told me back then, in 2018, when we legalized this, that we would be going through what we're going through in Detroit, I would have said you were crazy. But
Hmm.
I think the major issue behind it is one is just I think that I disagree with my colleagues in terms of the size and the scope. I think they want to start smaller
Uh-huh.
with 75 dispensaries. I thought that should have been expanded. I also think it's the issue of zoning. You have a lot of folks who are NIMBY basically. You want marijuana to be legalized. You don't want to go back to the criminalization and mass incarceration of people of color because of in the drug war, but we don't want it in our backyard. And so you
All
Hey,
right.
there you go.
We're
I must have
back.
lost you. Yeah,
We're
my
back.
bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for your patience.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that there was the issue involving zoning
Uh-huh.
and where we're going to have it. I also think it's the issue that Pro Tem Tate, who's been working diligently on this, wants to create an environment that's going to make sure that as many African Americans and people of color are successful
Hmm.
in this space. And I think that's a good thing. I think the problem is that we have these regulations. First of all, I think it's too small So you're choking a lot of people who are of color who want in this space who can.
Right.
And then secondly, I think it's the issue involving the franchise rule where you can only open up one store. And so you have a lot of people who've been in the space for a long time, including people of color who are successful in this business who want to open up multiple stores and couldn't be able to.
Right.
So you had a lawsuit about that. You also had a lawsuit about about the aspect where they wanted Legacy Detroiters, where basically it was a program where they wanted to make sure that 51% of the licenses were held for Detroiters. I agree with that, but the court shot that down. And so now they wanted to change it into where it's actually where it went from being licenses being held to now it's a status that you have to qualify for. And that again, I think, and so you have those kind of back and forth issues that are going on in the court system. Ultimately, I think that with the social equity program that we have, with the Good Neighbors program that we have, so that we make sure we have an opportunity for Black people and people of color to be able to get the training that they need, be able to have opportunity to participate in this space, and also that the businesses that are established here have to be able to be good neighbors and invest in the neighborhood around them. And also, there was an issue involving the fact that you have businesses that have been here in the medical marijuana space, that could not get access into the recreational space for 5 years. So you have that lawsuit that's happening as well, which I think is wrong and hurtful to our partners in space who've been here for years. And so I think that these are things that we're trying to kind of work out and work through, and I think that's why it's so long. But if you're trying to provide like equity on a racial level, you're not going to be able to do that without baby bonds and reparations on the national level, and that's a different conversation.
Right.
So I think those are some of the you're ultimately as the foundation. And so I think those are some of the things that we're trying to kind of work through. And I think we've already had one Black business in Miss Kimberly Scott, unfortunately, that closed up because it's taken so long for us to get the program online. We're actually hurting the people we're trying to help.
Let me ask you this, beyond the marijuana issue, some other issues. Dan Gilbert, they're building that huge Hudson's project. It's huge, and he nobody can ever debate the contribution that Dan Gilbert has made to the city of Detroit and particularly downtown. But the question is, then it becomes a debate: should a guy who's as wealthy as he is, who has access certainly to credit, he's in the mortgage business, should he get that $60 million that they're asking for?
First of all, let me say that's an excellent question, and I think it's legitimate. I think for me, the issue is, what do we do about the 7,500 workers? These are working families. These are union jobs. 3,500 Detroiters that are active there now if this investment were not to occur. Now, part of the reason why they're asking for this in the first place is because costs have gone up. This is originally something that was supposed to be, I think, $800-something million, and now it's gone up to $1.4 billion because of inflation. Diesel costs more, steel costs more, everything costs more. So you have too much money following too few goods, costs tend to rise. And so because of our supply chain issues in the pandemic, these are the issues that we're having. So that's why he's asking for this. So I think it's very important. Do we really want to play Russian roulette with workers' lives, with union jobs, people's lives, with Detroiters' lives? These are mothers, our brothers, our sisters, our fathers, and our aunts, and our families that are working these jobs that pay blood, sweat, tears, and toil to get the training to get these jobs. So I think that's what's important to me. One, I think.
So you do support it?
I support it. Absolutely. I support it.
All right.
I think, secondly, the issue that is very important to me is also, like you said earlier, we got to remember the $25 million investment that that Rock Financial has made in housing, the $15 million for people who've been overassessed with their taxes, which is part of a $500 million effort. The investment that they've made, I think $20 million in terms of minority contractors being able to participate in the construction trades and things of that nature. So they made a lot of investments, not to mention the $12 million that they've invested in Right to Counsel, which is basically financial assistance for people who are facing eviction to be able to hire a lawyer. So I think that if that sort of investment were to go away, where would the city be? So I think these are things that we have to measure, not to
Well,
mention the fact the cost of unemployment, which nationally black male unemployment is a $50 billion issue. So we're
uh,
trying to put a dent in
yeah.
that.
Let me play a little bit of a devil's advocate here.
Go ahead.
We've seen the Illiches build a beautiful arena there with the idea that they got maybe $400 million with the idea they were also going to develop that whole into a district town, and they've fallen short on that. We've seen in Oakland, California, where the Golden State Warriors owner moved the arena to San Francisco, paid $1.2 billion, all private money, no public money. We're talking about people who have access, who have a lot of money. And so sometimes the argument is like, yeah, this is a lot of money, but 60 million here, 10 million here, whatever. It's like they've got a lot of money. Should we be subsidizing that? And the question is, would the project, the Hudson project, would it just collapse if they didn't get to 60 mil, or would they just figure out?
Well,
Or is that a game of
question.
chicken there that you? I said, is that a game of chicken that you don't want to play?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's a good question. That's the question. Would they continue to go with the project? Would they decide that this is too expensive, because they're using this money to be able to secure the loan? So
Right.
that's why they're asking, they need this money. So it's like, would they stop investment, or would they build it? Because they've already pared this down from 800 feet to 600 feet. Would they pare it down further and build something, but then decide, we're not going to invest it anymore here, and we're just going to up and leave, or go somewhere else? Or what does our investment portfolio look somewhere else? And so I think that's the real questions that we have to ask ourselves. And again, do we want to play Russian roulette with 7,500 workers' lives, with 3,500 Detroiters' lives? I mean, you're talking about, is the answer to dealing with poverty impoverishing Detroit families? Is the answer to dealing with better schools laying off the parents of the kids who go to those schools? Is the answer to more housing kicking people out of a house? You understand what I'm saying? Is the answer
Right.
to affordable water and utilities turning off the lights and shutting off people's water because they can't afford to pay the bill because they don't have a job anymore?
Right.
And so these are the things that we have to work about and really think about in our mind. Not to mention the fact that we're receiving money back in terms of the income taxes from the businesses that will be built. And I also think this is the opportunity for us to talk about property tax reform as well. Part of the reason why you're having, these tax abatements be issued in the first place is because we have the fifth highest property taxes in the country residentially, and for commercial property over $1 million, the highest property taxes in the country. Which is why I think when you start talking about split rate taxes, where you tax the land at a higher value than the property and its improvements, which will actually reduce property taxes for everyone across the board.
Now, let me ask you this in terms of, this is sort of a multi-question thing here. I'm going to ask you your view of the state of the city. It's like, I want, people, particularly people who are from Detroit who have come back, they haven't been here for a while, they drive downtown and they're like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. This looks so great, blah, blah, blah. Then you go down streets, like you still go down Grand River, down Hamilton, down Oakland, in other parts of the city. And it still looks very blighted. It looks like nothing has changed. I mean, some of the places don't look any different than they did almost 50 years, right after the Detroit riots, with empty fields and abandoned stores. And you still have some really neighborhoods that are kept up really well. You have Sherwood Forest and, Palmer Woods and Indian Village. There's a lot of disparity there. What's your view of the city? I mean, depending on what block you're on or what neighborhood you're on, you can have a very different view of Detroit.
Well, listen, let me say, I think there's been a lot of improvement in the neighborhood. I think there's been a lot of improvement in terms of, I think that poverty is trending in the right direction. Look, the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement, and we can always do better. Let me say that. But I definitely think we're trending in the right direction in terms of unemployment, in terms of poverty, in terms of investing in the community. I think there's been a lot of improvement from where we are now than where we are, let's say, pre-bankruptcy or during the bankruptcy process, for sure. Um, but what I will say is, I think that's why the proposal in dollars are so important. The over $200 million that we're using to tear down these blighted buildings and these abandoned buildings, which I think that once that money is finally spent, plus the money that we're going to have for demolition, I think that we can actually talk about the city being blight free or as close to being blight free as possible. I think that's a pretty significant change. Also, I think the $203 million investment that we made in affordable housing, I think that's something that we all know how critical housing is right now. I think that's something that's going to be a significant change. I also think, like I talked about earlier, the split rate taxation piece, where we can actually lower property taxes for people, so we can lower the tax burden that a lot of Detroiters have. I think that's a significant change. And hopefully, if we could get, if we could pass the millage for mass transit, so we can have rapid bus transit out there in Oakland, Macomb, and Washington, I think that would be a significant change as well. So we got a lot of things that are on the horizon that are doing well, but we've made a lot of progress, not just downtown in the city. For you could talk about Flexing Gate, you could talk about Dakota, you could talk about a lot of investments that are going on, small business investments that's happening across the country. It's especially it's the city, especially right over there on that Livernois, Avenue of Fashion corridor. There's a lot of small businesses and new businesses that are coming around. So there's a lot of things that we have going on right now, as well as I think you have over 20,000 jobs for young people in terms of grow Detroit's young talent. So there's a lot of improvements that we have made in the city of Detroit and more to come. So I would disagree that we haven't had improvement in the city, but there are areas that we can do better, and we're going to do better.
I wasn't suggesting there weren't any improvements, but there's still a lot of disparity there. And crime, crime is something, it's interesting. In the news business, you see some of the papers saying, oh, we need to downplay crime and not report on it as much, but it doesn't make crime go away. In some neighborhoods, there's still a horrible crime problem. Not everywhere, but in enough that it's not, there's a livability issue. What's on the agenda for addressing crime, particularly in the really high crime areas?
Well, listen, I think the reason why we have these investments that we talked about earlier, in terms of building buildings and in terms of is for jobs. I think there is no problem in the city of Detroit that a good, high-paying job can't fix. And I think that the best answer to crime is employment and putting people to work. And so I think that's what we need to do. One, I think secondly, as a whole in urban America, we have got to have some sort of national agenda to deal with gun violence in this country. I think that when we have things where to quote State Senator Adam Hollier, where we're living in the time where guns and ammo is cheap and groceries and gas is cost too much. I mean, I think that's a significant problem. You know what I'm saying?
Right, sure.
When it's harder for you to have access to a good school than it is for you to have access to a weapon of war, I think that's a significant problem. And that's what we're dealing with in Detroit and what we're dealing with across the country. I mean, we just had the issue with, may he rest in peace in power, Mr. Courts, who had passed away, who was killed from a Draco. I think these are problems that we have to deal with. First of all, that should be dealt with as an assault rifle, and I think assault rifle should be banned. I don't know why we're selling military war weapons on the street. One, I think secondly is the issue with the pandemic as well. I think you have the Great Resignation. I think you have people who are looking for jobs, looking for better opportunities, looking for higher paid jobs. And I think that until we start creating more jobs and opportunities for people, start making more investments in our school system, from a national perspective, and have that conversation. I think until we start having tax reform as a whole, and I think that until we start doing more about the problem that we have with guns, this crime issue is going to continue to keep happening. But I think that James White has done a real good job in terms of Chief White, done a real good job of getting out there on the street, of making sure that we have serve and protect. So that's police officers that are actually walking the beat, making sure that we actually have police officers that are out there in our neighborhood, that we have outreach communities, that we have anti-violence problems. And I think using technology such as Shot Spotter to be able to find out where these shots are taking place and holding folks accountable, I think that until that time, we're going to continue that. And remember, during the pandemic as well, you had an issue where you had a lot of people who were being released from jail and things of that nature as well. And so I think, and I'm not saying that, we should start locking up people for low level offenses. But when you're having people who have offenses such as, murder and killing and, more of these violent crimes, we definitely need to have a city where that will not be tolerated.
Right. What are you, is there one particular issue that you're really passionate about that you really want to, in your, at least during your 4-year term, you really hope to make some headway with? Or
well, I mean,
everything what we've talked about.
Well, that's kind of like asking who's my favorite child. You know what I mean? There's so many issues. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
But I think I'll tell you what I'm working on right now is Transportation Innovation Zone, and so basically what that is a program that will be able to designate the Grand Central train station as a transportation innovation zone, so that we can have automated vehicles and we can have drones and the next future generation of technology be implemented right there in the city of Detroit, which I think is an opportunity for us to not only provide the best scientists and the best engineers, but also for us to partner with Detroit Public Schools so our kids can learn these skills and learn these talents and have apprenticeship programs so that they can take advantage of the jobs that are being created in these fields. And also, I think as well for our skilled trades community as well, when we're building these buildings and housing these type of opportunities, I think it's a real good opportunity for us to collab in terms of tech apprenticeships as well, so that we can have the necessary know-how to do these things. And so it also in terms of the mechanic automotive field as well. And so they're already talking about, having an experiment where Detroit would be, would be the flagship area where they would actually have, electric vehicles being able to be charged based on coils that are built in the ground. So you could charge your vehicle while you're driving it. You wouldn't have to go to a charging station. I think that's something that's very important. That's next generation technology, thinking outside the box, that will put Detroiters to work. And so not only can we deal with the issue of employment, we can also deal with the issue of reducing crime as well. And technology.
Yes, with COVID, it seemed like the city, prior to COVID, the city really had momentum going in the office buildings. They were spaces were becoming more and more coveted. Prices were rising. Restaurants were opening. And then we kind of hit that bump with COVID and things have been kind of uneven. And now the office buildings are some of them scrambling to figure out how to adapt to the more work at home issues. Some of the restaurants that service the office people have closed downtown. What do we do about that? How do you address that?
Well, listen, you definitely want to encourage. First of all, let me say, I think I want to encourage General Motors for choosing to stay in the Renton. I think that's a great thing. We want to make sure that we're open with business as well. But I think right now, what we need to do in the interim, I think when you talk about the service economy, we need to make sure, and I think this is part of the reason why the Hudson project is so important, that we have those restaurants, we have those shops, we have those stores where people are going to go in those storefronts. I also think the issue of the marijuana piece, what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring a lot of the new marijuana business downtown. I think that was something that would be significant for that area where you kind of kill two birds with one stone, because you have a lot of businesses that want to come downtown. And I think you have a lot of empty storefront space, as well as being able to go vertical, depending on how many businesses we want to actually have. And I think also those spin-off stores as well. So not just, where they sell the product, but where they sell the glass, where you get the supplemental products as well. I think, or you can have the brownie stores as well. I think that's something that we're really going to have to do in the interim, in the short term, until that equilibrium comes back where people are going to want to start going to work in the physical space. But I think that, technology has kind of changed, the fact that remote work, there's just going to be some companies who just remote work is just going to be better for them. Mm-hmm. It's going to work better for them. That's just the way it's going to be. But I think there's going to be other companies where it's like, we need to have physical space here. Mm-hmm. We need to have that. And I also think it's important that's when we partner up with our small business community as well. You know what I'm saying? Our haberdashery shops, our suit stores, our restaurants. These are some of the things that we need to invest more in and provide that space, particularly in the downtown core area. And I think that's where we're going to have to look in the interim to start making that replacement until we can start having those major businesses wanting to bring their employees back downtown again.
Now, one last question for you. Are you endorsing anyone in the, I assume you live in the 13th Congressional District?
You're speaking about the open seat?
The congressional seat.
Congressional? Yeah, I would Adam Hollier all the way.
Okay. Well, it's great talking, and I'm going to come back again at some time and catch up with you again. It's great. I think I've mentioned to you before, in 1985, I interviewed your father for 4 hours on a Friday afternoon over at City Hall. And it was fascinating, a very charismatic man. And I enjoyed it. It was interesting. So anyways, have a great day. Thanks again. I appreciate it. So.
Hey, thank you, brother. Always a pleasure to work with the best of the business, sir.
Okay. Thanks, man.
So everybody